Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, and we will cover verses 25 and 26. And there are two salient aspects in these two verses, Eimaan and Saleh deeds, which we have gone through many times before, and some aspects of metaphors. That should be of some interest to us. These are the references, and all excerpts in this talk are taken from the meanings of the Quran, volume 1. And this is our contact in case of any query, question regarding this presentation or previous presentation, or if we want to know something about Tolu Islam. A recap of verses 23 and 24. Now, it is quite interesting that these two verses we covered last in November 2024. And if you remember, we went over to permanent values. And after covering some salient permanent values, then we covered some divine attributes. So we have gone back to Surah Al-Baqarah where we left it back in 2024. What is noted in verse 23 of Surah Al-Baqarah is also covered in the presentation given under verse 1038. This verse was as a challenge put by the Quran to everyone that if you think that this messenger has contrived or invented it himself, then you go out and get all your cohorts and bring something like this Quran, that is some verses or surahs like it. And then Quran says that you cannot, because this Quran is not the product of human mind, it is something from Allah, that is His words. Continuing from verses 21-22, here the Quran puts a challenge before the opponents of the messenger that if they have doubts about what is being presented to them, then they should produce an alternative program for mankind. And it is worth going through that presentation and including this 10/38. There is a lot covered over there which serves as evidence that what is in the Quran is not the product of human mind. Because human mind, we all know, thinks on a certain pattern. It always thinks of its own interests, its own desires, its own wishes. And its mind is unbridled, it's not guided. Whereas what is given in the Quran is coming from the direction of Allah. And that makes it special, that once we follow the Quranic value system, then we are essentially in that higher domain of human eminence and loftiness, where whatever we do is bound to produce constructive results. And that is what Quran calls as Al-Haq. If they wish to make an attempt to meet this challenge, then they should invite all of their compatriots for help in this attempt, and leaving the book of Allah alone to one side, produce even one surah like this if they claim to be truthful. And this is the situation even today, that those who do not like the Quran, they simply cannot even comprehend it and comprehend its importance in terms of presenting an alternative system to the man-made system. And we should not worry about it. The issue over here is not to produce something like the Quran and spend all our life criticizing it and trying to find out something which is not present in the Quran. Our job is to get the maximum out of the Quran by following the path which is defined by it. This also means that those who accept Iman in Allah need to critically analyze the verses and surahs of the Quran with a view to establishing for themselves that this book cannot be the product of the human intellect and reasoning. This can be a very well defined activity in terms of understanding the book of Allah, that we first understand our own psyche, understand how unguided minds, unbridled minds operate in the world. For example, the word of 2025 is a product of unbridled human intellect. And the word whose map is presented by the Quran, we can look into it and see its salient features, and then we can compare it with the man-made system, and we will come to this conclusion that what is given in the Quran is unique, and if followed, can make this life like paradise on earth. This process of acceptance of the Quran with full conviction of the heart and mind will lead to becoming Mu'min and Muttaqi. Then the Quran concludes by stating that since no human intellect can produce anything like the Quran, hence this rejection of the guidance will lead to living a life of hell, which Quran terms as Jahannam and Jahim. And Jahannam and Jahim both essentially mean that human self will not develop and there will be fear and grief in the world, and human potentials which lie within our psyche will not be able to come out, and we will ruin our life in this world. That is, the collective life will be stagnant, will be static, and will not go forward, and our potentials will remain unexplored. In this world, i.e., the Quran is the only guidance which can help in the development of the human self, which is a prerequisite to the establishment of the divine system. And we have gone over it again and again, and it is important for us that the self which each one of us possesses, we should bring it in line with the Quranic value system. And obviously we cannot bring it in line with those values, that value system, unless we first understand it. Next slide is an overview of today's presentation. Those people who accept Iman as explained in the Quran, and then as a consequence of this acceptance perform Saleh deeds, their latent potentials manifest in the outer world, which lead to the establishment of that society in this world, which is called Jannah or paradise. In this paradisiacal society, there are all kinds of prosperities, including fruits of various varieties, meeting the needs of the respective eras. As this society will be managed by Mu'mineen, hence it will have companions of high intellect and lofty character. And this is an interesting part of it, and we will go through its details in our subsequent slides. This society will continue to flourish as long as it follows the laws of Allah as far as this worldly life is concerned. For the life of the hereafter, this interpretation should be taken metaphorically. Mu'mineen will also have a blissful life in the hereafter. Those who do not have Iman in the Quranic value system take a convoluted view of the metaphors referred to in the Quran and thus cannot take advantage of its guidance. They have a flawed psyche. In contrast to them, Mu'mineen know that the book of Allah is Al-Haq, that is, it is bound to produce constructive results if it is followed, and that its guidance will always lead to constructive outcomes in this life. Those who display kufr become fasik, and kufr means those who do not bring out their best and deny and falsify what is given in the Quran, and they live at an animalistic level. And fasik, we will go through it in one of our slides today. And as a result, fall outside that pattern which the Quran has put forward for self-development, and so become deprived of all those benefits which are associated with the guidance. So there are certain benefits associated with the guidance of the Quran. We simply cannot get or achieve those benefits unless we come to the Quran. We go to the first verse of today's presentation, verse 25 of Surah Al-Baqarah. Mu'mineen are reminded about the benefits. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّةٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِنْ ثَمَرَاتٍ رِزْقًا قَالُوا هَذَا الَّذِي رُزِقْنَا مِنْ قَبْلُ وَأُوتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُطَهَّرَةٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. In this clash, there is nothing to be apprehensive about for that Jamaat which has conviction in the divine laws and the higher values of life, and which keeps treading in practical terms on the potential enhancing program defined by Allah. So this first sentence is continuing from the previous verse. O Rasool, give them the glad tidings that such a society will become established for them whose eternal successes and prosperities will be unfamiliar with any decline. This is a beautiful sentence, that there is no decline when we follow the procedure and process of the Quran. With such springs which are unacquainted with autumns and an everlasting life in the hereafter. These things are not just specific to them. When and wherever any Jamaat adopted such a path, its outcome has always been the same. The outcomes of these deeds are always one and the same because the formula is same. Whenever we combine two molecules of hydrogen and one molecule of oxygen, it will always produce a molecule of water. Although their forms are aligned with the changing demands of the era, in this society, there will be other people who will continue to join them and will keep becoming their companions. Because once this society is established, then people will keep joining them. They will also have virtuous characters like them, but that will be important that only those will join with their hearts and minds who have similar ideology, similar value system, that is of the Quran. As long as this society remains established on the foundations of these divine laws, it will keep bearing its fruits in this way. There will be no fasad or change in this. And fasad over here means there will be no chaos, there will be no fear, there will be no grief. People will rationally understand everything using the Quran. Now, next slide is elaborating some aspects further, and I've taken it from the Meanings of the Quran, Volume 1. Amal Saleh, that is righteous deeds. The root of this Saleh is given over here. Aslaha alayhi means asana alayhi, i.e. he performed such a deed as a result of which the flaw, fault or deficiency of another individual became eliminated. So Saleh means all those negativities, emotional imbalances which we have at an unguided level, all those can be identified and then can be removed by following this procedure. Therefore, Amal Saleh means those deeds which produce balance and proportion. And it is not otherworldly. We notice ourselves that after doing Amal Saleh, after acquiring Iman, the change which comes within us and its manifestation in the outer world becomes an evidence that our self is developing. The meaning of As-Salah is for circumstances to become balanced and straight in accordance with the demands of the intellect and guidance. In other words, for something to be precisely that state in which it is meant to be. And that is a very important part of this sentence, that Allah has created us with certain latent potentials. We are meant to become something. And what Allah intends us to become, that is all given in the Quran. The only thing is that we have to make our own effort by seeking the guidance of Allah to become that. So Allah hasn't made us like that which He intended to make. It is our duty that we make an effort through our own choice to become that. And that is why this whole universe is created. So this aspect is very important for us to keep in mind as we go through every day of our life, because weeks are becoming months and months become years. And if we don't pay attention to that, then we are essentially wasting a lot of very valuable time of our life. To remain in an absolutely suitable, correct, orderly, and appropriate state. From the aspect of the vastness of this meaning, Amal Saleh will denote such tasks due to which the latent potentials of man become awakened. Very important, because once we look at the deeds, we should look at it that what benefit myself will get out of it, what benefit this will give to the selves of other human beings. And in this way, the ability to traverse evolutionary stages of life is created within him. And in addition, beauty and balance in society remains in place and imbalances are eradicated. Whatever deeds bring prosperities with them, both in this life and in the hereafter. So the world which we are witnessing in 2025 is because there are not many who do this Amal Saleh after acquiring Iman. These will, in any case, be those tasks which are in accordance with the laws of Allah. The next slide is continuing with the elaboration of Saleh deeds. Amanu and Amilu Salihate have appeared as intrinsically linked together in the Quran from beginning till end. And we have gone through this Iman and Amal Saleh as a permanent value under our segment of permanent values. i.e., having Iman in the truth of the laws of Allah, and together with this, performing those deeds which draw out potentials according to the procedure described by the Quran. Those deeds whose origin is not from the conviction of the heart, that is not through our acceptance of Iman, are merely the product of habit or custom which keep being performed mechanically. And this is a very important sentence over here. That is why I have highlighted it, that a lot of people think they are doing a lot of good deeds under the domain of religion, and without accepting that precise Iman which is given in the Quran. And that is why they do not get that self-development which is defined in the Quran. Correct results cannot be attained by these, because the foremost consequence of correct deeds should be to produce a transformation within man himself. And this transformation has to be checked against the criteria laid down in the Quran. His self should develop, as a result of which purity in his character and eminence in his conduct should be produced. This result can never be attained from those tasks which are performed mechanically. And that is important for us. Are we carrying out or performing deeds in our life mechanically? Are we doing it willingly? And for those, we have to, at every point we make choices, we have to look at those choices in the light of the Quranic value system and see whether I should proceed with that or not, and know the consequences of it, that these will produce results in the future. On the other side, that Iman which never becomes the motive of Amal Saleh is not conviction of the heart, but is merely the name for customary expression from the tongue, which remains futile in the same way that deeds without Iman are futile. So precision is very important, and we have to look at it very deliberately, very consciously, that what I'm doing in my life on a day-to-day basis, am I fully aware of it? I know the consequences of the choices I'm making, and does it meet the criterion of the Quran or not? And this has to be individual as well as collective. Only those deeds are Amal Saleh which the Quran has declared to be Saleh, not those which we consider to be Amal Saleh according to our own criteria and opinion. And this is important. Some of the deeds which we think Saleh under the domain of the religion, they do not meet the criteria laid down by the Quran. It should be made clear that the Quran has described many deeds as being Amal Saleh, but has not given any comprehensive and definitive list of these deeds. So finding this out is also our duty. And obviously we cannot find this out unless we go through the Quran analytically as a system of Deen, and then present our own self to become part of that struggle for the system of Deen. And that is why we are on this platform, because the purpose of this platform is to teach ourselves what is given in the Quran, and then to develop ourselves. If we say about Iman that it is the name for firm conviction in the truth of those lofty values which the Quran has defined for the development and growth of the human self, and Amal Saleh is the name given to the protection of those values. This is what, in other words, will be called character. And character is not something abstract. It is a tangible thing. It has to be based on the way we act in our life on a day-to-day basis. And for that, we can always look at, for example, the last 7 days, that exactly how did we spend them? What exactly did we do? And even within the man-made system, what was our thought process? So becoming accountable to our own self in the light of the Quran is part of this journey of life. Next slide is some comments on Al-Jannah of the Quran. Now this term is used in this verse 25. Al-Jannah is a very fundamental and comprehensive term of the Quran. Linguistically, the meaning of this root is given here, and it is to height. A number of words emerge from this root, and many of them are mentioned in the Quran at different places. Jannat means a garden, particularly that garden whose land is concealed because of an abundance of trees and copious vegetation and is not visible. In the Quran, the consequence of Iman and Amal Saleh is declared to be Jannat of this world, and also Jannat in the hereafter. We have already stated that the life in the hereafter and the form and realities of its states cannot be comprehended at the existing level of our consciousness. But we can get some kind of an impression about the hereafter. And we have in the past covered some aspects of the life of the hereafter in one of our presentations. This is why the Quran has presented them in the form of metaphors and similes. It is stated in Surah Al-Ra'd, the parable of the garden which the righteous are promised, beneath it flow rivers, perpetual is the enjoyment thereof and the shade therein. And the Arabic is Matalul Jannatillati Void al Muttaquna Tajri min al Anharo Okuluha Daimun Wazilluhu Tilka Ukbal Lazina Taqaw wa Ukbal Kafirin an Nar. And the words over here are attaku, that is to become muttaqi. So these are part of producing or creating this Jannat in this life, that these mu'mineen have to go through a procedure, a process from individual to collective, and then joining their hearts and then keep working towards this so that they can get power in the land. In order to inform us that Jannat is not the name of some location, the Quran has stated, and a garden of bliss, the width whereof is as the width of heaven and earth. This is a beautiful verse, and we can go through these verses, 2 verses which are noted over here, and use our imagination to expand it as much as possible in the light of the Quran. Next slide is use of metaphors to explain the life of paradise. Regarding the Quranic metaphors, it has stated, from these parables, those people will be able to reach the truth who make an effort to understand their meanings via knowledge. So the route to understanding these metaphors is to acquire knowledge of the Quran and, of course, the knowledge of the man-made system. Those people who infer from this that this implies the physical things of this world should understand that now no person knows what delights of the eye are kept hidden for them as a reward for their deeds. This is a beautiful verse and needs a lot of imagination on our part using the Quranic knowledge. As far as the description of their metaphors and similes is concerned, it is obvious that these examples should have been such that the initial nation being addressed by the Quran could understand them. But these are equally applicable to the world of today as well. In a country like Arabia, where there were hot deserts spread all around, in which one odd oasis could be found and a few trees would grow around this spring, it is obvious that for them what could be a greater, luxurious, peaceful and comfortable scene than this, that there should be lush gardens in which there are clear and pure springs. And even those who are living in a very green environment also appreciate water, mountains, trees, grass, so all this greenery. Cool water from these springs flowing all around, no vestige of heat in this garden, trees laden with fruits, where there is such an abundance of honey and milk, it is as if streams of them are flowing. Next slide is a few more comments on Jannat, that is the paradise. The Quran has not mentioned only one Jannat. It states, for such as fear the time when they will stand before their Rabb, there will be 2 gardens. That is those who follow the laws of Allah. One Jannat in this world and the second Jannat in the hereafter. Then Quran says, in these Jannats, life will not be monotonous, rather will consist of great variety, which means Quran wants us to create this world as well, where there is no monotony. It is dynamic, it is highly motivated and provides incentives for human beings to bring out their best and also to relax and enjoy this life. Like the Jannat of the hereafter, the Quran has also described the nature of Jannat on earth in great detail. It begins this from the Jannat of Adam. The story of Adam is the story of man himself. It is related very much to this world. Behold, and the Quran says, your Rabb said to the Malaika, I will create a new creation following the previous one on earth who will possess free will. And we will be going through these verses in our next few sessions. It is apparent that the purpose of this is to describe this very life of man, and after this, Adam is told to live in Al-Jannah. And the foremost characteristic of this Al-Jannah was this: and eat of the bountiful things therein as, where, and when you will. This is what true Jannah should be. Totally free from fear and grief, and people are bringing out their best, and they have all the means of sustenance available to them. In this, there were no restrictions placed on the means of sustenance. There was no question of mine and yours. Because the moment human beings say mine and yours, that means they are creating conflicts, they are creating dissensions, they are creating that differentiation between two human beings. One could eat to the full wherever one wished. There is therein enough provision for you not to go hungry, not to go naked, not to suffer from thirst, nor from the sun's heat. There no sense of fatigue shall touch them, nor shall they ever be asked to leave. And this is the beauty of this Jannat, and Mu'mineen are asked to establish it in this word. Next is mention of Azwaaj, a brief elaboration. Though this term has appeared in this verse 25, regarding life in Jannat, it has also been stated, and there will be noble Azwaaj in it. Azwaajum mutaharatun. The general belief among us is that Jannat will be provided in the life of the hereafter, and Jannati men in this will be given very beautiful wives, who are termed as Huran. Since huge misconceptions arise as a result of this belief, and the opponents of Islam raise great objections to this, and they should, it is important that this point becomes clarified. The meaning of Azwaaj among us is taken to mean only wives, so much so that Zawja is the name given to a wife, and a husband is not even called Zawj. But according to the way in which this word is used in the Arabic language and the Quran, its meanings are very wide. Linguistically, those two things are called Zawjun, which are complementary to one another. And I will go through it again. Linguistically, those two things are called Zawjan, which are complementary to one another. And this is a very important sentence in relation to the system of Deen, where Allah says that your hearts must be united because you are following the same ideology. When two things are such that without the one, the other cannot be completed, then among them one will be called the Zawj of the other. So in case this pair, this complementary connection doesn't exist, there is something lacking in these individuals. For example, the two wheels of a car will be called the Zawj of each other, because if one wheel is missing, the other will remain ineffective. And this is our daily observation in the man-made system. It is also necessary that both these wheels should be alike. From this point of view, the meaning of Azwaaj are same values, same conduct, harmony, and companionship. And that is why Quran says that you should come together and hold on to the rope of Allah, that is the Quran, so that your hearts become united. So that is a precondition on this journey towards the system of Deen. Men and women are both included in this. And since according to the criterion of the Quran, a husband and wife should be the most harmonious companions of each other in both conduct and similarity of outlook. Therefore, the husband is the Zawj of the wife, and the wife is the Zawj of the husband. Another term which is used in the Quran is Hoor. This is in relation to verse 25, though this term hasn't appeared in this verse, but it has been included just to make it clear right at the outset. The meaning of Hoor in connection with Jannat, there is also mention of Hoor. The word Hoor is not just used for the feminine, it is also used for the masculine. This word is a plural form, and singular forms are Ahwarun, which is masculine, as well as Hawara, which is feminine. These meanings are such people, men or women, whose whiteness of the eyes is very pure and its blackness is very intense. Among the Arabs, such an eye was considered to be very beautiful. So this is the physical aspect of it. But later on, this word began to be used among them to those people whose character is sterling and whose outlook is very pure. Because the meaning of the word Ahwarun, that is plural, Hurun, is of pure intellect, i.e., not a cunning and devious intellect, instead of pure and clean intellect. And that means this intellect should be manifested in the outer world so others also know that so and so possesses this intellect. At some places in the Quran, together with Hurun, the word Ainun has also appeared. The meaning of this is also of such an individual whose eyes are very beautiful, and it is used for both male and female. Hence, in the life of Jannat, the state of mutual companions, that is Hurun, Ainun, whether they are just comrades or husband and wife, will be such that their intellect and reasoning will not be used to deceive one another. That intellect will be employed for good from the heart, i.e., a pure and clean intellect, not devious and deceitful. These are the meanings in this verse. And they have therein companions pure. And see how much security and safety and peace will be among these companions who will be establishing this system or part of that system. With that, we go to the next verse of today's presentation, that is verse 26, highlighting the importance of the use of metaphors. Inna Allaha la yastahi an yazriba matalan ma ba'udatan fama fawqaha famallazina amanu fayalamuna annahul haqqum min rabbihim wammallazina kafaru fayakuluna maza aradallahu bihaza matala yudillo bihi kasiran wa yahdi bihi kasiran wa ma yudillo bihi illa al-fasiqeen. So highlighted some of the salient aspects of this verse. We have declared this society to be an evergreen garden, that is Jannat, and have compared the outcomes of their balanced deeds to delicious fruits. This is because lofty realities can be made to be understood through tangible metaphors. So this is from the previous verse, that is 25. Hence, it is not against divine majesty that he describes realities via similes. This is in relation to similes of gardens and fruits. If the need arises, then he will have no hesitation in using the simile of a lowly thing like a mosquito, or something of even lower rank than this to make the matter clear. Those people who have conviction in this, that all this is being explained from the direction of Allah via Wahi, will understand from these similes that this is a concrete reality from their Rabb. But those people who deny even this fundamental reality will find thousands of faults in even these metaphors and similes. Because once we don't like the Quran, or we start looking at it critically rather than looking for guidance, then we will find this kind of criticism. And we have seen it, we come across these kind of people in our life with whom we exchange the message of the Quran. And we'll say, what then is the aim of these kinds of examples? From this, you can understand how from one matter, two contradictory outcomes can be deduced. Because it is the same fact, but people take different view of it. The difference is in the point of view. If we looked at from one angle, you will be led to paths of misguidance. And if looked at from another angle, paths of successes and prosperities will open up from this. So whatever meaning we take of different metaphors in the Quran, we have to look at it in the overall context of the message of the Quran and its guidance, and keep in mind that there is no contradiction in the Quran. But only those people tread on wrong paths who do not wish to live life according to the pattern of the laws of Allah. Instead, finding paths of deviation, they adopt separate paths for themselves. Now let us look at this in more detail, difference in perceptions. We have seen that the Quran helps us to understand abstract realities, especially metaphysical ones, through tangible metaphors and examples, and this is the most thorough way to have them understood. An example can be quoted about any suitable thing. When the Quran has described that the reaction to these metaphors is different from the mu'mineen and from the kuffar, then there is a psychological reality concealed within this. In the outer world, the matter may be one, but different people have a different perception of it according to the viewpoint of each individual. And Quran has said that this is a book which removes all kind of suspicions, conjecture, doubts. And if we approach it with a view to deal with our own psyche, then we will find constructive answers in the Quran. But if we are approaching it in order to find faults in it, then we will get nothing out of it except misguidance. And misguidance in this way that we will waste important time of our life. And all that we do in this life without the Quran will go to waste. One individual, on viewing a vibrant rose on a blossom-laden branch, downs himself in a state of delight and joy at its beauty, color, fragrance, and varieties. Contrary to this, another individual turns out to be a constant complainer about his thorns. So we have to look at the life positively, because once we have come to the Quran, then man-made system with all its weaknesses, vulnerabilities, and its drawbacks becomes very clear to us. We know why the system is like that. So there is no point in keep criticizing it and not putting our best on this path which is defined by the Quran. This difference is due to the point of view. This is our daily observation that regarding the same thing, the same event, or the same person, different people not only have impressions which are different, but at times are contradictory as well. And this is where Quran helps us to save time, to optimize our efforts in this life. It says that once you come to the Quran, just follow this path, hold on to the rope of Allah, and then see that how things change within your own self, as well as by coming together, your hearts will become united, and over a period of time, you will find that the things will start becoming tangibly clear on this path. This disparity is the product of a variation in viewpoint, and it has also told us that do not worry about those people who have passed away or others on whom you do not have any control. You will not be asked what others did. You should concentrate on what you are doing and whether whatever you are doing is in line with the Quranic values or not. The students of the Quran need to keep in mind that the aspects of the divine system which appear obviously logical and rational to them will not elicit any attraction and interest on the part of those who do not have interest in the book of Allah. So expecting some kind of a positive reaction from someone who is not interested in the guidance of the Quran and is quite happy with the benefits of the man-made system and doesn't see yatim and miskeen in the word, there is no point in wasting our thought on such human beings. We should concentrate on those who have come to this path and also at the same time develop ourselves and keep doing solid deeds. Recognizing this is part of education, training, and self-development, and this is what precisely we are aiming to do on this platform. Next is differences in viewpoints. The Quran changes the viewpoint of man. The consequence of this change is that he sees everything in its true form and defines its worth according to the scale set by the divine values. And with practice, we can in fact figure out various scales as well in our life and in the life of others, and we can also put some kind of a scale on the deeds of others. The Quran does point to these aspects, that you should continuously be holding your own self accountable as well as looking at others, that where others are making mistakes and where their strength lies. This is that transformation in the self produced by the Quran, referring to which Iqbal says, "Now I comprehend that the word is nothing, the word is my heart. By its transformation, the color of everything has altered." So over here, we have to use the lens of the Quran to study everything, including our own self. In Quranic terminology, this changing of the color of the heart is called Eimaan. This is an immense fundamental change which is created within the human psyche and becomes the foundation for changes in the outer world. As a result of this, the scales of the things of the universe change, their values change, their objectives change, their requirements change. This is the fact which the Quran has described in the verse under review, that is verse 26, by stating that though the example is only one, the impressions of the people looking at it with varying perspectives are different. And we do come across people who say that what is in the Quran except the stories from the past time. And they only see these stories, whereas a moment sees it, a complete structure of life, a map of life, the potential blueprint of our life. Later on in verse, for example, in Surah Al-Imran, we will see that this same issue is mentioned in relation to metaphors. And over there, Quran has said that there are two kinds of verses in the Quran. One are those which have very established meanings like laws and values, and others are metaphors. And those who acquire knowledge can also understand those according to the era in which they live. Examples of some metaphors from the Quran. In the Quran, different facts or subjective conditions have been made comprehensible through different examples. These examples will keep appearing before us in the verses coming later. Here we will present a few as illustrations. And we will see that how this journey together is going to be exciting as we explore further through the Quran. The intellect of those opposing the commands of the Sabbath are compared to apes. And this is in relation to Bani Israel, that they were told to observe certain discipline, certain limitations, and they contravened and went against it. And Quran says that they behaved like apes. Those who do not use their intellect and reasoning and follow the path of their forefathers are compared to sheep and goats. The examples of those who have insatiable greed is like that of a panting dog. It's a very interesting verse, this 176. We should go through it a few times. The simile of Kalma Tayyib is as a virtuous tree and Kalma Khabith as an evil tree. And we have gone through this verse when we went through Surah Ibrahim. Fear and uncertainty and insecurity created by shirk is explained by giving the example of a fledgling which falls out of its nest and some eagle or vulture snatches it away, or a dry blade of grass which a gust of wind can blow in whichever direction it wishes. This is a very interesting verse, and it says that if some people or some nation or some individuals even, they display shirk, that is, they combine Allah's laws with the man-made laws, then they essentially fall down from the heights, or some other eagle or vulture as it snatches away a small bird, or just like a blade of grass which flies around, and wherever the strong wind takes them, they will go. And this is the state of all these Muslim nations which are being pushed around by the superpowers in the world. And this is because of shirk. Next is a few more examples of these metaphors from the Quran. The example given about nations who squander the results of their hard work through their own hands is that of an old woman who toils the whole day long spinning, but who at the end of the day shreds it into pieces herself. And we can see the glaring examples of this right today, that some of the rich and powerful nations are destroying themselves through their own hands. It is not that they don't have intellect and heart. They are extremely rational. They could move the mountains, but instead they are destroying their own self. And this is because they are going against the laws of Allah. Expectations attached to idols of batil are compared to the thread of a spider's web. The example given about idle religious clerics is like that of a donkey on which a pile of holy books is loaded. And we can see the example of this in all religions. There are volumes and volumes of books are written which are totally meaningless and are against the Quranic value system. Purity of character is compared to a transparent pearl inside an oyster shell. And the last example is the heavenly torch to which the Quran has been compared, that can only be elaborated in its own place as the cause for enlightenment of the heart and vision, because it is feared that by trying to encapsulate it here, the majesty and sublimity of this allegory may become diminished. This is a beautiful verse 24-35, and we should go through it in our own time in both directions, and then see that how illuminating this verse is in terms of presenting the Quran as nur, as light from Allah. These and numerous other metaphors like these are examples through which the Quran has explained different realities, and as has been stated earlier, descriptions of all the states in the life of the hereafter are metaphorical and allegorical. The last slide the meaning of fasiqeen, which is used at the end of the verse 26. These are the metaphors and similes about which it is stated that for many people these become the light of their path, while for others they are a reason to criticize and for fault finding. Such people are called fasiqeen by the Quran. Among us, the words fisk and fujur, fasik and fajr are commonly used, and these are Urdu terms as well, but few people know the correct meaning of these. There is a skin over the fruit of a date within which it grows and reaches fruition. This is also the state with other fruits. That is, a lot of fruits have a skin over it. That skin is like the pattern of this fruit within which its potentials are fulfilled and it reaches maturity. But sometimes it also happens that the fruit exits its skin from one side. That is, the skin ruptures and tears open, and as a result, the inside of the fruit is exposed. Such fruit never reaches maturity and instead rots. And we see these examples if we have, for example, an apple tree or a pear tree in our garden. We can look at the fruits and see how these split open. Arabs used to use the word fisk for this state. The Quran bestows the pattern of that system of society and collective life by remaining in which the potentials of the individuals of society become correctly developed. So this word is applicable individually as well as collectively, that we have a self within us, and if this self goes outside the pattern of the Quran, then it is essentially of no use to the program of Allah. The individual or faction who exits from the pattern of the system will be declared as fasiqun. Their development will not be able to take place. And this is a horrendous loss. We should pause and reflect on it on more or less on a continuous basis, that what it means to go outside the pattern defined by the Quran. Hence, every individual who goes outside the sphere of the divine values and the pattern devised by it is a fasiq. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.